What's up guys, Richard here, welcome back to the channel. Now today's video is on a niche topic. Basically what I'm doing is I'm sending events off from my game to Google Analytics, and that way I'm able to track progress within the game, specifically for my testing phase of my game. Now the reason I've decided to make this video is because normally with a mature engine, say Unity, Unreal, even Godot, there is analytics solutions that exist out there, plugins. You can basically just activate them, put in your data for that specific solution, and then you can just collect analytics, and it's really easy. But because Flax is such a new game engine, there is no plugins for analytics, and when I had a look in the Discord community, there was no discussion regarding this topic, so I literally had to go out, figure out how to post events to Google Analytics and send that off. And as a game dev, as opposed to a web dev, I did not know how to do that, and it took me a while to figure this out, so I just wanted to share this with you guys. Now basically what I'm going to have is my player, which is, he's over there, he's like way over there. He's going to run through this trigger box right here, and if you have a look down in the trigger box, there's two things here, an event and an action. And what it's going to do is he runs through that, it's going to post an event to Google Analytics, and that's going to show up in my data, and it's going to be the pre-attack town event and with an action of entered. So let's just go do that right now. I'm going to press play, and I'm going to run straight over through that. So let's go. And first up, you're going to notice that there's this error message down here, DLL import. This will only happen on the first time. Don't worry about this. The Flax community is aware of this. It does not affect analytics at all, and you might not even see that when you guys get around to doing this. What has happened is, if I go over here, have a look at this. I've got the event, pre-attack town, entered in my Google Analytics, so it has sent it through. I've done some testing earlier today, so I know this is working. It's working all as intended. So the way to do this is you basically need one static class, and I'm going to show you how to write that right now. Okay, so this is basically the entire class. I'm going to run through how this works. So I've got a static analytics class. I can activate it, well, I can access it from any other class in the game. And it's got in here a user ID. This is basically just a GUID that will be randomly generated upon startup, and this will be the user that's used within Google Analytics for tracking the user. This means that for every session of the game, there will be a new user ID. If you wanted to, like, obviously make that persistent between gameplays, you're going to have to put that into a save system of some sort, but I don't care about that. This is just for testing purposes. Now, first up, what you need to do is deal with certificate errors, because Flax does not trust anyone, which is the same with most game engines, so you're going to need this bit of code right here. And this caused me a little bit of hassle, because I got all this working in a console outside of Flax, and when I brought it in, I was getting certificate errors, and this will sort out the certificate errors. If you want something that's a bit better of a solution, I'm just going to go over to here. This was something I posted in the Flax GitHub about the issue, and basically a solution was provided by both Scott Longley and Mephisto himself, and basically you just copy this bit of code right in here. But if you want to plug in an example, you can just follow this link right here, which will take you over to here, which will explain how to set up a certificate store for Flax. Now, I'm not going to go through all this because this is just, it's not needed for what I'm trying to show you here. So if you want to make your own plugin and put it all in place like that for just the certificate store, you can. That's how you get to it. Just go to issue 605, which is currently closed. The next thing is it's sent through, as I said here. It didn't post anything about it, but I did get this warning message. It's sent through to Google Analytics right here, the pre-attack town, and I entered it. So I know it's working. What happens is you call this event called send event. It's a static event. You pass through a category and an action. Ignore this is just for my game. But what it does do is it launches a separate thread, and for that thread, it calls this event post event. Now you need to pass through your Google Analytics ID. I'll show you how to set this up after this. You'll need to pass through that user ID and then a category and an action. Now within it, it's pretty straightforward. What it does is it creates a web request that goes to the Google Analytics backend for collection of analytics data, sets it to post, then it combines that data up here into basically a post request that can be read, converts it to UTF-8, and sets the application type to an application so that when that data is received, it knows it's coming from a computer as opposed to a web page. posts the request, does the stream, and then finally right at the end gets a response and closes. Now you have to do this even though you don't use it, because for some reason Google Analytics somehow detects that. I don't know, I'm not a web dev. So you basically just include that. You can read this out, and basically all it is just like a GIF statement from Google Analytics saying, you know, it's all good, I received your request. Okay, so a few things you might be interested in is this post data here. Now, to figure out how this string works, there is actually a web page on this. So if you go to this page here, Google Analytics Measurement Protocol Universal Analytics, and you go under the events section, it explains how to write this. If I go back over here, the first up, we've got v is equal to 1, that's version equals 1. TID is equal to my Google Analytics ID. It's basically saying, hey, my ID is this. CID is basically, this is the user of who's like related to this data, so you know, because you can have multiple events for one user, it just links them all together. Then we're going to say, hey, we're using an event, and the event category is this, and the event action is this. Now there is actually more that you can add in, but I didn't care about it. For example, you can add an event label, which is EL, and the way you would do that is you would literally just straight on the end, you would just add @EL equals, and then you'd add in, you know, whatever your label is, blah, blah, blah. And then there is also, if we just get rid of that, finally an event value. But none of this I needed, and it's not recommended that you use that stuff anyway. And that's pretty much all you need to do to get this up and running. Finally, though, you need to get that analytics ID, and it's also only used for web pages. Now, we're basically sending this through as a web request like we're a web page. So the way you get this is you go to your analytics, and I'm going to have to blur out some stuff because I don't want to reveal my personal details. But once you've set up a data collection within analytics, which is pretty easy, you just watch a YouTube video on that. You go to settings, and this is where I had to dive in some forum posts to figure this out. You go create a property. Now, in the create property, you give this a name. So I'm going to call this like my game, okay? You set the time zone, currency, we don't care about that stuff. Oh, time zone we do, but we don't care about currency. Then you go under here, show advanced settings. You turn on the universal analytics property. Now, it's going to ask for a web page because remember, we're sending this through like a web page. I've found you can use your own personal web page or any web page or just a made up web page. It does not matter because all we're doing is creating a universal property only. We're not going to actually implement this into a web page. We're sending this from our game itself. So you can put anything in there. I just put my own personal web page in there, and it works. There's no issues involved. Once you've done that and you press next, it's going to generate a tracking ID, which is what you copy straight down into here, into this post event section. Now, I've just replaced this temporarily with this, because again, I don't want to reveal my actual one. And that's basically the entire process for getting this set up. The few pages you might want to know about is this one here. So you can use, if you, for some reason, your event's not going through and you want to check that it actually works, you can copy this entire string that you generate here into just here and set this to post, and then go send, and it will pop up telling you if it worked or not. This page here, if you want to make modifications to the type of events you're sending, or if you want to send something else, maybe transactions, I don't know. And this just to give you some background on basically how to deal with certificates and Flax. And that's pretty much it. So if you guys like this video, like it, share it around, sub to the channel. See you all in the next video, and hopefully you don't suffer as much as I did in setting up analytics.